So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the slides that I have, and I'm not going to keep them on the whole time, but I am going to sort of use this a little bit because this webinar is about how would you use this product, this thing called A Positive Approach to Dementia Care, Understanding the Changing Brain. And then in the little circle, move from surviving to thriving with somebody's tips and insights, apparently mine. So what I've got going here is I put together a slideshow to sort of like get us into different spaces and possibilities of how we might be able to use this product, given that we might be in different places and in different roles and spaces and in different situations. So after the webinar, Emilio will actually take the recording, clean it up a little bit if it needs it, add the PowerPoint. So you will get both the PowerPoint and the recording if you have purchased the product. So you will have the recording and the product. And we had done a previous webinar, so that webinar will be available as well. And just so you know, I'm not duplicating. If you were hoping I'd do the same one, you're in for a disappointment. If you're available for something different, well, there's some structural similarities, but there's a lot that's going to be different this time. So we're going to be looking at this as a resource. This is a resource. There's lots of ways to use it. And some of the ways that we might find that could come in handy is we could use it for something personal. I just have a question myself, and I'm wondering if this has the information in it. We might be a leader of a group of some sort, and so we might be a group leader, and we see this as a resource that you can use for members of the group and for the group you're actually leading. It could be you're a member of a group and you want to share this with someone else in your group. And so we'll give you some strategies for maybe doing that. You might be a trainer or an educator. So you actually routinely help people go from unaware to aware to getting some knowledge, perhaps, maybe even trying out some skills. You might actually be a coach. Your job is not just the knowledge and awareness. It's actually people use skills. And we're going to figure out, is there stuff in here that you could use in the job you have? And then you might be a consultant or a counselor, someone who's back from it a tiny bit, but you're there to try to help other people figure things out, problem solve, have a place to come and talk about your experience and what's going on. And then finally, you might be a care plan coordinator. You might be responsible for putting a plan of care together for someone living with and their family or the staff, and you want to do a great job at that. So is there something in here for you? So I'm going to kick us off. So, who's willing to go on the spot first? Let me see. Who in my little room here is willing to go on the spot first? Now, notice that everybody's going to get a chance. It's just who's going first.
Oh, Teepa, I don't know if you can see Dan or not.
Oh,
Sorry,
I can't.
I was trying to give you the visual cue.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, you weren't on my list over to the side because I have the screen up here, so I couldn't quite see you. Sorry. I saw Beth and Debbie looking at each other, and that didn't look like that was an answer. So here's what we've got going on here. In this particular situation, I am actually just really curious myself, and I'm supporting somebody living with dementia, and I'm really struggling with something because what I know about this, and so Dan, you're going to switch it to a wife apparently because you're a male. So we'll just change the spouse condition. So you're confused a little bit here because your wife seems to remember things just fine. She doesn't seem to be having trouble holding on to memory of what's going on, but she keeps getting lost in the car. And why the doctor is saying she has dementia, it's just probably that she's not paying attention and she's not trying the way she used to, is what you're feeling like. Because she doesn't have a memory problem.
No, she's able to point out a lot of my faults from long ago. Her memory is just fine.
So it seems like she's able to pick up on some things, and she even knows what she had for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she remembers things very well.
Yeah.
She's always been a multitasker, but it's like, I don't know, maybe she's just taking up more than she can chew and she's trying to do too many things. I don't know. It can't be dementia. Her memory's fine.
Yeah, so it seems like it's not a memory problem. So I'm really curious, Dan. I'm going to have you look at something with me.
Okay,
So we're going to take a look at the front of the book, and we're going
okay,
to look for the chapter that talks about um, wayfinding. How do I get there
mm,
from here? Which is chapter 9, and it
thank
starts
you.
on page 89.
Okay,
Okay, so you got your book there, and we can take a look at it, maybe.
mhm. I have
Okay.
a digital copy, so,
Oh, you have a digital copy. Okay, cool. So one of the things that happens here is that there's a couple of different ways that memory can be affected. And
okay,
the one that you're thinking about is, does she remember stuff?
right,
Yeah, that's sort of like, can you learn and remember things? And she does.
okay. Mhm.
Yeah. Now, another way that we could look at that is called spatial memory. Do you remember how you move in space to get from place to place, and then how you would get back from place to place?
Right, yeah, she's always been my navigator, so she's always been really good at that.
Yeah. And so what you're noticing now is that's not working so well.
Right, yeah, I don't know, she's
Right.
just doing other things, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a word, and on page 90, the phrase that we're looking for here is called wayfinding.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
And if you look at the picture opposite,
Mhm.
under the hippocampus, what do you notice that it provides right there? What does it say up under learning and memory center there, Dan?
It says wayfinding, learning and memory, time awareness.
Mhm. And then what we see is a brain that's healthy, and we see a brain that's living with dementia.
Wow, yeah, that's very different. Would you like me
Yeah.
to share my screen so others can see it, or I guess they have theirs?
Beth has hers up,
Oh,
it looks
okay.
like, or Chris, one of them does. So if we look under that second paragraph, how
Mhm.
does somebody get, and you said she used to be really good at this.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
great with maps.
Yeah. So, it really is. It's a way a person moves independently from one place to another. And it refers to what people see, what they think about, and what they do when finding their way from place to place.
Mhm.
So, how do we get there? And how do we get back? Yeah. So, here's the tricky part of memory, it's not all one thing. I mean, she
It's not.
might be still really good at remembering some word details and some story details and be able to remember what she was doing, but she may have really tremendous problems with finding her way from place to place.
Yeah, she's always struggled with things like, turning left or right. She says, take a right at the McDonald's. At one time she actually gave someone the exact wrong directions. And
Oops.
and that's when, years ago. But yeah, but she was always really good at knowing where things intersected and how to get from here to there that I
Right.
just couldn't follow. But
And you
now,
could not so much.
no.
Yeah. So now usually there's another part of the brain that also is a little bit different. So I'm going to have us look at it's sort of in the introduction here, because I'm wondering, I'm going to have you take a look for just a minute at um, the picture of the brain on it's sort of a pre-page, and it's XBII. And it shows you actually a picture of the brain, all colorful and everything, of course that's. And so I'm going to have you look, and I'm going to pause everybody. So I'm curious, people on this call who are familiar with what we're doing, what am I helping Dan? What's my objective? As he's asked a personal question, he's really, really wanting to know something. Um, how am I using the book to help Dan?
You aren't just telling him things, Teepa, you're having him explore the book with you and discover some things for himself.
Yeah. So the idea of the book is I'm having Dan, because he truly in this moment believes that she's not trying very hard, and she must not have dementia because she remembers stuff. So, so in the pre, they don't have this picture, Beth, is what you're saying.
I was wrong, just in the group. I'm sorry, Teepa, that was me and my confusion. Let me go ahead and show what it is you guys
Oh,
were
good.
looking at.
Because we want people to feel like they do have the resource, because we
Mhm.
try to make sure both. Yeah. So what do you think I'm doing here? Because Dan may take data in through visual means, or he may take it through audio means, or he may actually need to physically do something with it. What am I providing him with the book? What does the book allow that just talking doesn't?
Somebody even put in the chat, the AELC, the Adult Experiential Learning Cycle, the different way that we learn.
Yeah. And so this becomes something Dan holds and Dan can look at. And I say, you know what? I want you to take a look at this. And if you would, I really would love for you to go back and look at the chapter, and then we can get back together after you get a chance to read through that. Because what I'm trying to figure out is, how does Dan learn best? Because y'all think Dan's going to have a lot to learn if he's going all the way from, I think she's not trying, I think she knows stuff, she's not, this is, so it's really this opportunity for me as a support person for Dan in this one-on-one to figure out, how can I learn better how to help him? How can he use this when he's not with me? How am I actually getting him to realize, look, there's different things in different chapters? And so Dan's eye might actually go down to using cues as a care partner. Oh, well, maybe I should look at that one. Because all of a sudden, Dan is starting to see this as his partner rather than just me. And this as the thing that might allow him to stay connected to his wife. So sometimes this kind of resource where I say, here, this is what we're going to use, this is how we're going to start, this is what we're going to work on. When someone comes to me with a specific concern or question, this could be a way that they get this idea of how this becomes a resource for them. And we may come back to it multiple times. So that's one example of using it. And when I get more familiar, I might, or Dan, after you get more comfortable with it, because you are that kind of learner that likes to sit and read and figure things out. If you're having trouble now, where even though she does hold on to things, she still wants to drive, even though it's not a good idea because she keeps getting lost. What might you look at next in that book? Where might you go, do you think, now that you've been working with it a little bit?
Well,
Now notice what happened, because what I said is, now that you've been working with it a little bit, if Dan hasn't had a chance to work with it, he doesn't have anything to hold on to except me. And what I'm doing is, unfortunately, I'm creating a dependency relationship on Dan. And what I want to do instead is empower Dan. So what I might actually do is, hey, Dan, if you would do me a big favor before we get back together, I'm going to have you take a look at, actually, the chapter that I want us to take a look at next is chapter 5, which starts on page 41. And I want you to think, for both you and your wife, how that chapter might have meaning for you and what you're going through right now.
chapter 5, is that amygdala and brain change? Or
It sure enough is, fright, flight, fight.
I don't know what that has to do with driving, but I'll read it.
Yeah.
I'll
I
read it.
wonder,
And
when Amanda and you have issues, does she like to fight, or does she tend to want to get away?
it kind of depends. A lot of times we talk it out, but we have a hard time seeing eye to eye at times.
Does she ever go on walks away from you for a little bit and then chill out and then come back?
No, I'm the one that usually does that.
You're the one that usually does that.
Mhm.
So if you're still hanging around the house all the time and she doesn't have a way to have you get away. I wonder if she might be thinking maybe she should go to the grocery store or do something functional so that you have a chance to cool down.
Yeah, but have something she can walk to, so that puts her back in the car.
So I want you to take a look at that chapter and let's see what we can figure out. Because you were saying you didn't see what it might have to do with it. And okay, so what did I do rather than just say, I don't see what this has to do with it. Connect the dots before he took off. Yeah. Because if we don't figure that out, it's not likely to result in a great outcome the next time we're back together. So here's where we're going to actually move forward. Here's one that's a little bit different. Let's see what you think about this one. And I'm going to put it out to the group here. I'm the one living with dementia, and I have a question. Because here's the thing, a lot of people living with dementia or MCI are still quite able to take in data. And so, the book has value there too. I have a lot of folks that I work with that are looking at the book as we're going through it. So here's what the person said. I find I almost explode when someone says you don't look like you have dementia. I just like, ugh. Is there a chapter that might be helpful to me? Like, I don't like this feeling like that I have when they do that. It just literally makes me go ballistic. Because what am I supposed to look like when I have dementia? So I'm wondering if the team here could come up with anything in the book they think might be helpful for someone. Now, where did you guys go immediately? Because this is the thing about the
Table of
Oh,
contents.
you went to the table of contents. Yes, it does have a table of contents. And so you look through that and you go, okay, so I have a situation where the person, what am I saying? So team, what am I saying about myself?
You like to read about it. You like to pause and.
Okay, do I have self-awareness?
A lot.
A lot. Do I have impulse control?
I would say in not immediate impulse control, but there's something there that with awareness comes some level of impulse control.
Well, what I'm saying is, boy, do I feel the cortisol kick in.
Yeah.
So what I'm still able to do at this moment in time is not say it out loud, but I want to. Is it healthy to keep cortisol in that space? Do you think?
Is it healthy? Tell me more about that, Teepa. Is it healthy to keep cortisol in that space at the moment?
No, I have a lot of cortisol and I'm not allowed to say anything. I'm not allowed to do anything. What do you
goodness,
think?
no.
Is that a healthy thing? Is this healthy for me?
No, cortisol is the evil of all of us. We're able to work it through and work it out. It causes inflammatory diseases.
Yeah. So really, we need a strategy for what I can do when somebody does that. And I need a strategy I can use. And I'm going to have to probably rehearse it some. So I noticed that some folks put in chapter 3. So tell me about chapter 3. What are y'all thinking? Why chapter 3, do you think? Anybody there want to make a guess at why people might have gravitated to chapter 3?
It kind of reflects what I'm thinking as a person who has dementia. Like, well, I am who I am who I was, but something's different now. So that chapter title kind of stands out as something I might want to explore.
Okay. Anybody else have a different thought?
Someone in the chat put that it helps me understand what I think, what my loved one is going through. So maybe even if I'm not the person living with dementia, I can actually see it from the other side in a much more positive, understanding what's going on way, just by the way that the chapter is phrased.
Okay, so here's where I first went.
Let me do a share screen on that one. That was actually came up for me too. It was the same chapter, that Dan's concern when he was the spouse,
Oh,
and it was about dealing with distress. And I thought that was interesting.
oh,
Let me show that what Teepa shared.
yeah. So page 47, for those of you who are looking around for where that is, you know, Teepa, it sounds like you're really feeling something and it's pretty intense. If you look under low, medium, or high, would you say what you're feeling is just sort of you're irritated and bothered, or you're angry and frustrated, or would you say you're more furious and enraged? Yeah, furious and enraged.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, furious and rage, totally
Yeah.
on that one.
Yeah, but even before you develop dementia, would that statement have irritated you, do you think? Or not really? You never would have even thought much about it.
I never would have thought much about it, but I wasn't always somebody that was really happy when people told me what I should look like.
Okay. So when you have something that you didn't envision yourself having, and like
Mm,
dementia is hard enough to have, and then people say, well, you don't look like you have it. It's like,
yeah.
that's a really hard thing to say, because what do you know about yourself? Because you figured it out, it's accurate. You don't have a problem with figuring out something's really wrong with my brain. You have figured out my brain is not working like it used to. I know it. I mean, and
Yeah.
that sense of how dare you tell me that I don't look like I have the thing I look. I mean,
'Cause I know I have it. And this is it's hard enough as it is.
it's hard enough as it is. So I'm wondering whether if we look at the person who says it, I
Mm.
wonder if they're here too. Okay, so you find yourself going to furious and enraged.
Ah,
I wonder if they're having a strong reaction, because this is such one of those kind of conditions that nobody wants to have. And certainly if you're a friend of mine, I would not want you to have it.
so they've got some level of distress knowing that I have it. So they may even be reacting to that distress themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you don't look like you have dementia at all. I mean, that can't be what it is, Beth. I mean, seriously.
They can't even
It-
face that as much as I couldn't when I first
oh, so
got.
unfortunately for them, they're in distress. So they're not thinking straight either. So if you were to have that blow up, will that help them at all or not?
No.
I've got something I'm curious about. I'm wondering if when you go, can you do that? Now I want you to go, and I want you to say, wow.
Wow.
So I don't look like I have dementia.
I don't look like I have dementia.
Huh.
Huh. Oh, well, my huh was less energy than my first one.
Ah. So I'm really wondering, I wonder what made you, why did you say that? Because it's a real interesting thing to say for me, because my brain changes inside. So I could understand how I wouldn't look particularly different, but I'm wondering what you thought I was doing that made it feel like I didn't have a brain change that you can't really see it.
Teepa, I like that exchange because we know that I talk to my friends who are in that role of having to educate the world beyond the erroneous notion that Alzheimer's equals memory equals dementia, which is not true.
Right.
And they find the role of educating people positive many times. They're advocates,
Uh-huh.
not unfortunately by choice, but eventually it became by choice after they had these diseases. But sometimes you don't want to be the educator. You just want to be a person. And
Yeah.
that it sounds like it opens up the opportunity where I may get some of my needs met, but I don't have to be everything for everyone all the time.
Yeah. Well, I think what I tried to do with you, Beth, when you were going, "Ugh," was to go, because I want your cortisol. I mean, we know that a deep breath can drop your cortisol level. And then when I had you go, wow, it created a pause space where you had the opportunity, to get curious. So you have a potential to become skillful and to deal with this repeated trauma that you're exposed to, but we're probably going to have to work on it.
Oh, what you're saying, people with dementia can actually learn? Go figure, right? I can learn things even if I have dementia.
People living with dementia learn things all the time, and sometimes they're helpful and sometimes they're not. The plus of the book is it gives you that opportunity to use this book to say, this is human, this isn't dementia, but as a human, there are options. And what you're experiencing is an amygdala reaction. And what you're trying hard to do is use your prefrontal. The tricky part is cortisol causes the and that's all in the book. So it's an opportunity for me to take something in and then figure out how to share that out in a support role for someone living with. And to use this as a resource, and then to use it as a resource, and then they become a resource. And again, the idea of expanding the stage on which we present this instead of, no, I know I don't look like I have dementia, but I do. I mean, it's like, yeah, I do. And you know, I mean, I'm not sure how you would see it because I didn't see it for the longest time. I mean, there's so many ways to take this. And the book is about the brain is changing. This isn't not an on-off switch. And so helping people recognize there are so many variations. It's a great, I mean, for me, the reason to use the book is like, wow, how helpful it is to really take a look at something in multiple ways. So now what we're going to do is, you know, go on. Okay, here's one for you. I'm leading a support group. I have members who have someone living with Alzheimer's, while others have someone living with vascular, while at least 2 people have someone living with Lewy body, and some people aren't sure, you know, they really are not sure that that's other than it's a dementia and it's MCI, but that's all they know. And they're in the support group. So I'm going to give a little more structure on this. And many of these I've gone through and given more structure so that we can move through them. If I were to ask you what chapter would be helpful, I'm just going to give you a couple seconds. Those of you who are familiar with the book, you can probably figure it out. Those of you who are looking through the table of contents, here you go. This is how I'd start it. And I'm just going to say, this is how I'd start it. I'm going to go to that page that we looked at before, where we looked at the brain with its color coding, which was in the preface. It was in the preliminary part. And I'm going to take a look at that, and we're going to look at that page, and we're going to take a peek at this. And I'm going to say maybe something like, so how many of you have the person that you're supporting is having changes in 1 or more or 2 or more areas of the brain here? The ability to be logical, reasonable, control impulses, sensations, messages, movement, the idea of sort of, you know, like having impulse, the auditory data, occipital, you know. Yeah, you're having some of that. Let's take a look here at page 14. Now we're going to move over to 14, and I'm going to, Beth, if you could, do you have down the numbers through that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do. Yeah, if we could. Oh, cool. Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so 14 and 15. So I'm holding it up as well for those of you who might be looking. 14, 15.
There we go.
Okay, now go back to 14, Beth.
Mm.
And in 1995, this was pretty much the slide that we used to discuss dementia. Now, we were still identifying it was dementia. And under that was this huge, huge thing called Alzheimer's disease. And there was early onset and there was normal onset. This was 1995. And then there was this little box labeled other dementias. There's real small boxes off to the side. Well, in 2019, we have page 15. And from 95 to 19, 20 plus years, things have surely changed. The challenge is that some people who were working in other areas of medical practice only were there when it was this. And because their primary focus is not this, it's other stuff, they totally miss that we're more over here these days. And so, wow, this gets a little tricky. Now, here's the cool part, page 17. So I'd like us as a group to take a look at some of the symptoms under, these are sort of the kinds of symptoms you might see relatively early with these different types of dementia, and have you take a look at that, because all of you in the support group are dealing with some different things, and some don't even know what kind, if you have a dementia, or even if you're just in the beginning phases. So let's look at the different drops and see what you notice. Let's have a conversation about that. So I'm going to pause there. So what am I doing with the support group where I have a bunch of diverse people before they start talking about the situations and the challenges they face? And I know that I've got all these different dementias in the room, life experiences in the room. What am I setting up for people? So I'm using the book as a resource to set up something. So what do y'all think is the purpose of doing this way?
It looks like you're setting up an opportunity for them to discuss, this is happening for me, this is different for me, so that they're all coming together, realizing, yeah, the situation might be a little bit different, but we're all under this umbrella.
And how did I start it off?
With the brain.
With the brain, and saying, check out, where are you noticing this? And then looking at the different dementias, what else did I help people possibly appreciate, which they may not have known? I mean, they may not have had a clue coming into this group. And I'm not calling names or anything, but what am I?
The understanding, or the difference and the shift in the medical community of understanding all of this.
Yeah. So how did you know you had Lewy body? What is Lewy body? I mean, because my doctor didn't say anything about, oh my God, my wife, my wife's, my husband's, my dad's symptoms. That's more what we're experiencing. And it's like, they said it was just MCI, but I can't eat every night there's something new, that's like, so it's affecting life. Well, I guess it's in your definition of MCI.
If I'm hearing something in the support group that really sounds different than what the doctor has told me, wonder what it would be like if I did share this with my doctor and have some.
You may not have noticed down in the corner, it says the 4 truths about all dementias. I didn't mention it, but I bet somebody will. And so it opens that up, and it also then gives them places to go look.
And Teepa, I was going to add, as a support group leader, you might learn something from this that you didn't know as well.
Well, yeah. MCI, mild cognitive impairment. It's what people consider that period of time when I'm having some changes, some difficulty with holding on to data, maybe finding a few words, but nothing that's life-changing. Well, unless you ask me or maybe somebody I live with. And so it's all in shades of gray here as to whether or not, when it converts. Currently, it's based on, your score on a pencil and paper test, not what you're experiencing as a human being. I mean, we use paper and pencil tests. We mini mental state exam, or the MOCA, or whatever. There's a rate, and it's like, we don't actually check in with the people living with it, and the people living with the people living with it to say, now, how much of life changed would you say? And it's like, oh no, it's all fine. It's like, okay. So we are getting to where, we've spent some time. So I'm going to open up for either questions or chat for a second. Yeah, Beth?
Yeah, there's a great one that's so multifaceted. Hopefully this will also get some other people. It's one thing to find words that show up in the chapter that help you address your concern. So I love this question because it's answerable by the book, but it's not straightforward. So Janet W. says, my mom has vascular dementia, especially with me as a main family care person. She is in a memory care facility. Mom has separation anxiety, asks for parent, asks if babies are okay. What needs are not being met? Because we talk about meeting unmet needs rather than just trying to answer the question all the time.
Yep. And I would say, it sounds like your mom might have a couple of things going on, because you've raised it that it tends to be more just with you. So when something tends to be just with one person, that's not just dementia. I mean, she gets a lot of separation anxiety with you as somebody she trusts and feels comfortable with. And so I would start to wonder whether she has episodes of anxiety when you step away. Um, and so that's something we could address, but we have to recognize it's not just her dementia. On top of that, she's having some anxiety that happens when the familiar is not available. So she likes it when she has a chance to be with somebody that she's comfortable with. So now I'm looking at, okay, so how do we reduce someone's anxiety? Well, then we start looking back at that chapter where we have the amygdala, because anxiety and amygdala, remember, anxious and nervous, and she becomes more and more. So we've got to develop our strategy and our skill. How do we help when somebody's brain is becoming distressed? Because what she's feeling is it more sadness? Is it loneliness or feeling trapped? Is it fearfulness? So now I'm going to go back to this and say, which one of these does it seem more like, so that I can figure out the right emotional support to offer? And who in the building has skills to be that support as well? And if they don't, I want to talk to the person who does care planning or is in charge of the building to say, how can we build skill with somebody so there is someone besides me who can do this, so that my mom doesn't miss me so much when I'm not here? How can someone else support my mom so I can step away and she still feels like somebody's there for her? How are we going to do that?
So Teepa, what I heard you say, because that was such great information, what I heard you say is that first starting off by recognizing what's happening, that it shows up, and where is it happening? What's causing this maybe? When does it happen? Just the facts. But then really hearing, feeling, and listening truly deeply to the sounds and the tones, because this is something we come with outside of dementia. We can hear if somebody sounds fearful or if they sound angry. We can tell the difference between sadness and maybe disappointment.
Where are you going?
Oh, you're asking where I'm going.
Yeah, I don't understand why I can't go with you. This is
Okay.
ridiculous. You put me in this place and you think you can walk out and leave.
So it's the words and the sounds. I can maybe, okay, it sounds like anger at first, but is it
Where are you
loneliness,
going?
or is it
Where
sounds
are
like I
you
can narrow
going?
it down with this.
Why can't I go with you?
Oh, same words, totally different feeling.
Where are you going? I need, I don't know what to do when you're not here. Please don't leave me.
That sounds like loneliness, doesn't it? Or maybe sadness, one of those two I can narrow it down to, and then see about, and then your third thing, it was finding how you then can meet truly the depth, not necessarily just what's being expressed, but truly what is being felt plus the expression for that
And
person.
notice that I wasn't putting it back on the daughter to be the one to always be able to do this. We need to really, if she's going to live in this community, we've got to help someone within the community develop the abilities, the knowledge, the awareness. Or this is going to keep happening, because we've got to find the right support for mom in that space, so that when there is this transition of the daughter leaving, mom has someone she can turn to, and we figure out, what does this look like? How do we do this transition? And that is a skill-based thing. But now we've identified what we want to do. So this is where, the book has other options too. I mean, so we've done some, and you guys keep putting in the questions and they'll bring them up. But I do want to go through a couple of others. I can just lay them out. Well, that's not what I was looking for. Those are other things that Teepa goes and looks at when she's not writing chapters in books or finding things out. She goes and does stuff. Let me try that again and see if I can get to the right place. Try this. See if that pops up. Okay, so we were right back where we were. Okay, so this time, what's happening in this scenario then? That's a little bit different. Just my role. So I'm gonna do some teaching here, and it's a group of folks. So my goal, my objective, people will do a better job of communicating when someone is having language skill changes. I would really, I mean, my goal is I know where they are now, and I would like them to have better skills. So how we're going to use the book, we're going to start at page 54, 56. And we're actually going to read through the interaction between Teepa and Tom. The first one, and see what happens. And then the second one. And then I have a whole list of additional things we could use, and I would use if I was teaching the class. Now, by taking people through this many pages, how many of you as learners think that once you've looked at these pages in class, there's a possibility that some of you might go back and look around those pages for other stuff? Or look at the pages again if I said we're going to have a quiz next week. Maybe for some of you, I don't know, you might need an added reason to go do it. So what did I end with? Go to page, let's go to 54, 56. 54 to 56.
So I've got the pages if you want to.
Oh, good. Okay,
go
great.
down.
Thank you, Beth.
Cool, thanks. You got me with just half words. You totally underfollowed me.
I did. I got it.
Impressive.
So if we look at the first 54, what we have is Teepa and Tom have intact skills in areas of communication. I'm standing in the kitchen by the refrigerator and Tom's in the living room at his computer. Sound familiar? Yeah. What do you want for dinner?
I'm not that hungry. What do you have in the fridge that wouldn't be too much trouble and kind of light?
Well, it looks like I could do something with eggs. I could make soup from leftover vegetables and some canned beans I have.
How about an omelet with some of those veggies?
Okay. Are you going to class after that? What time are you going to leave?
I need to pick up Jason and get the pliers, so about 6:30 or so.
Oh, okay. I'll get going. Okay. So what were some things you noticed about us communicating? And that would be my first question. What did y'all notice? And then I said, okay, now we're going to do it again. Only, Tom has some changes in his language consistent with Alzheimer's in early to mid state. Teepa's still standing in the kitchen at the refrigerator and Tom's in the living room at his computer. What do you want for dinner?
What?
What do you want for dinner tonight?
I'm going out tonight.
I know that. I wanted to know what you wanted to eat for dinner.
I have gas class tonight. I've got to take something with me. Do you remember what it was?
Talk about that right now. I'll tell you later. Right now, I want to know what you want for dinner.
Well, it sure sounds like you're talking to me right now. I don't remember what it was I'm supposed to take to class, but it's something that I need. Better call the guy who's going with me and see if we're going to get dinner on the way there.
What are you talking about? Jason is going with you and you have to get the pliers out for the workshop before you go. Now, for the last time, what do you want to eat for dinner?
Nothing. I'm not hungry. Why are you yelling at me?
Oh my God. All right. Now, it does help to be able to do dramatic readings, but have we set it up that caregivers could see potentially themselves or situations in this and compare the two scenes? And then we take them through some of the underlines. So those pages in between then are underlying things where we have them think and talk. And then finally, we're going to end up on page 58. We're going to do a lot of work in between, but we're going to end up on page 58. Stop. And I'm going to say, Hey, Tom, sorry to interrupt. I'm getting ready to fix dinner. Would you rather have soup or something else?
Sorry, muted. Soup or something else? What's the something else?
Ah, so not soup, something else instead. Oh, how about an omelet or a sandwich?
An omelet or a sandwich? What's in the omelet?
Well, how about eggs, cheese, and some veggies?
Eggs sound good, and I love cheese, but what are veppies?
Ah, so the eggs and the cheese are good, but you aren't sure about the veppies. Let me show you what I've got, and you can tell me what you think. Here are the things I'm going to put in the omelet.
Oh, yeah, those things are fine. I like them. I just didn't want those veppies you were talking about.
Great. I'm going to get to work fixing this. Can you come and set the table?
Sure.
All right. So bottom line, what do they get by the end of the class?
What used to be, what probably is, and maybe what can be with some skill.
So I've set them up to recognize not living with dementia, you can get away with crap. When you're living with dementia, it matters. And I went through various parts of the book to help them realize it's not just a couple not communicating, it's really language skills are shifting, interaction skills, visual skills become really important. It's not a hearing problem, it's a comprehension issue. And we can make a difference by how we deliver and the pace at which we deliver. So here's what it might sound like with skill. And so, so here's the last piece we're going to get to. There's so much more we could do, but we're running out of time. Here's the next piece. Now, I'm a coach, and that class they just went to, if I don't do something with the class they just went to, it was interesting, it was great, and maybe 25% of folks would be able to try something like what I did if they were real interested. Here's what we're going to do, though. I want people to do a better job of communicating when someone's having these language skill changes. So we're going to start with those 54, 56. We're going to reread. Then we're going to read 58 to 59, and then we're going to drill. So I'm going to say, okay, Beth, so you're going to be me and I'm going to be Tom. Okay. And I'm going to say, knock, knock. Oh, no, you're going to say knock, knock. Sorry, wrong roll.
Knock, knock.
Yeah.
Hey, Teepa.
Yeah.
Beth.
Beth. Yep.
Hey. And then,
okay, so we can start with just that. So we're just going to work on that. So the difference between coming and going knock, knock, as opposed to standing far away and say, it's time for lunch.
What do you want for lunch?
So the goal here in this scenario is that I actually want them to start using a relationship, using visual then verbal cues, impulse control, matching language to pace with rhythm and simplified choices and curiosity. So this is how we take it from just a book that's been read to something people are going to do differently. And that's that coaching element. Now, if you consulted with families, you could have a family who's experiencing changes and frustrations in trying to care for their dad or husband. They have a medical provider who documents that the person living with dementia should be encouraged and supported to go out and exercise on a regular basis, reduce calories and sugar intake, and wear their CPAP for sleep apnea. So what I might have them do there is, let's read chapter 14 so we can talk about what our options in care are. Because it sounds like the physician is thinking you might be in one place, and I'm wondering if your dad is someplace else. I consult with an agency on care with care providers. I ask the care providers to look at page 76 So we can look at 76 real quick because we're getting close. I'll leave a few minutes for questions.
Here, let me go ahead and pull that up for you, Teepa.
Oh, thanks. 76. For those of you who are familiar with 76, this one.
Wrong 76. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, 76. Yep.
That's the one you're looking for.
That is the one I'm looking for.
Ironically.
That's the one we're looking for. So what I could simply do is say, okay, I want everybody to try tunnel vision and walk around in here with tunnel vision. I want everybody to try binocular, walk around with binocular. Ooh, now we're going to try monocular, the red box. Yeah. Now go back to normal vision without any changes. What do you notice about that? So here we go. I have carers that may or may not understand or know that another change in the brain that happens when people are developing the brain changes that come with dementia is the back of the brain changes. Not just the front, not just the deep hippocampal area. This is like, wow. So if that's the case, I could say now for next week, I want everybody to take a look through, because I'm giving you chapter 7, which starts on 65. I'm giving you this idea that the visual fields are just, the people are just not as aware of what's going on around, but there's more to it than that. So I'm going to have you read through the chapter and come up with at least 4 other ways in which vision has changed or could change when somebody's living with dementia. And we're going to talk about what you see when you're about giving care that supports or says, I haven't seen that before. And we're going to see if we can figure out, have you or haven't you? And I'll be here to support. So lots more we could do with the book, but I'm hoping that what we were able to demonstrate today is that it's a multifaceted resource. Yes, you could just read it, but we actually put it together for something more than that. Any thoughts or questions from the larger audience that maybe people would like to bring up that you're watching the chat? Because I'm not. My visual field is for a lot of things. Here. I'm doing divided attention. I'm doing changing focus, and it's hard to see the little words on the bottom.
While people are sending in questions via chat, we have had quite a few in the Q&A section as well. And just want to bring attention, Christine put something in the chat, well, 2 things in the chat. In particular, there have been a lot of really good questions that aren't easily answered typing. And we do offer a free 30-minute consultation. You can even choose to have a consultation with Teepa. If you come to the website, Christine did put the link right there in the chat if you want to click on it. But talking to someone about your specific issue could be very helpful.
And also, if you are part of an organization and you would like training for a group of staff or some ideas for a group of staff, also contact us and we would be happy to show you some of the options. We've got lots of options.
Yeah. And so if you have curiosity about this webinar, as I said, Emilio's going to be getting it up, getting it loaded up. It'll probably be what, Emilio, about a week?
What day is today? Thursday, maybe Monday at the latest.
Oh, Emilio's really quick once he gets going. And the PowerPoint, which I'll be sending him, will be available to you. But if you have more questions or want something else, this is just a part of our library, but we're hoping that it's helpful to you because we try to do things that make a difference. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. And thanks for taking an interest in the book and changing brains.